Hey everyone, I just want to let you know on this particular show, the audio is going to be a little noisier than it typically is. We have a great guest, and he actually carved out time to come on the show. And he was teaching a basketball camp at the University of Illinois, and he had to go outside to do the recording. And so you can enjoy the sounds of birds and nature a little bit more in this episode. Before we start the show, I want to thank and recognize our sponsor, Christy McCullough, and her Mobile, Alabama firm, Empowered Family Law, empowering families to navigate difficult changes and create new beginnings.
Basketball has truly given me everything that I have. I talk to kids all the time, and I tell them that my wheelchair basketball chair is my version of an Iron Man suit. It's how I transform into the most powerful and influential version of myself. So my entire outlook changed the day that I found this game of wheelchair basketball, and my identity became about pushing myself to be not only the athlete that I was always hoping to be, but a much more well-rounded and confident person, and a much more well-rounded and confident leader that just wants to be known as a hooper just like anybody else.
Hey everyone, this is Rod Cade, and welcome to this week's episode of Rocket Motivation. This week's guest is a 4-time Paralympic medalist for the United States national men's wheelchair basketball team. He most recently won gold in the 2020 Tokyo Paralympic Games. He's had incredible success in wheelchair basketball from high school, college, and representing the USA. His story of how he began playing wheelchair basketball, his success, and his life lessons are what Rocket Motivation is all about. We're honored to have him on the show. I cannot wait for you to hear his story. I know this is going to be a great episode.
3, 2, 1.
Steve Serio, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Rob, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk through a little bit of my journey, and excited to give back to your listeners.
All right, excellent. So Steve, why don't you do this? Let's tell us where you are now in your life, kind of what you do, how old you are, where you live, your family, kind of bring us up to speed.
I'm actually currently at the University of Illinois, my alma mater. I'm getting a chance to teach a kids wheelchair basketball camp here on campus. To provide a little bit of background, I'm originally from New York City, New York. I was actually born with a benign spinal tumor that went undiagnosed for the first 11 months of my life. And during that time, the tumor became infected and inflamed and crushed my spinal cord, resulting in the incomplete paralysis of my lower extremities. So living with a disability, it's all I know. It's all I remember. And when I was about 15 years old, I was fortunate enough to find the game of wheelchair basketball. And that's brought me to the University of Illinois, where I got a first-class education. I've been a Team USA athlete for about 17 years now, and it's been the journey of a lifetime for me. But now I get a chance to come back and give back to the game that has given me everything. So that's what I'm currently doing here at the University of Illinois.
All right. Well, let's go back in your childhood and your adolescence growing up. Take us through that, how you got around, how it was growing up with a disability. And I know, you actually could walk with crutches and braces, and take us through that part of your life.
So like I said, I got injured really early on in life. And basically growing up, my family was determined to raise me and treat me like any quote unquote normal kid. And basically, I tell people that my world when I was growing up was about fitting into a world that was not built for me. Everybody else around me walked, so I needed to walk. And because of my disability, I needed to wear these big, clunky braces, and I was able to walk with crutches. And I was a big athlete growing up. Like we always joke around about how if you're an athlete, you're just an athlete. There's no decision. And I always played sports. And basically, I was a big baseball player growing up. And when it was my turn to hit, I'd get up to the plate, I'd hit the ball, and somebody else would run down the first for me. And I'd take his or her place when the play was over. And that's how my childhood went. It was about adapting. It was about fitting into a world that was not built for me. And to be honest, growing up with a disability was not easy. The last thing you could possibly want when you're growing up is to be different than all the other kids around you. And it was particularly tough for me because everyone could see my differences. My flaws that I thought I had, my insecurities were constantly on display to the world around me. I remember I would have these adolescent worries like, would my friends continue to accept me if I can't play sports with them at a high level? Or God forbid they truly understand and know just how different I am from them. Would they continue to accept me? And that's how my world was until I was about 15 when I found wheelchair basketball through a physical therapist. And I remember so much was unlocked when I had initially found the game of wheelchair basketball. It allowed me to not only find the athlete within me that was always there, but it allowed me to unlock my true self-potential, my true self-worth. Finally, I was able to be in a world that was built for me, where I didn't have to adapt. I was just able to be myself. And I'm just so incredibly grateful that I found this game.
Right. Tell us how the wheelchair basketball for you started.
Yeah. So like I said, I was about 15 years old and I was playing for a lot of my high school sports teams. And it was at that time when my friends continued to progress in their high school athletics, and I just wasn't able to compete with them anymore. The game had kind of passed me by. So I did what any friend would do, and I became the manager. I became the manager of the football team. I became the manager of the track and field team, just keeping times and just providing as much motivation as I possibly could to basically say to the athletes, hey, I can't be out there with you guys, but you owe it to me to give it your all. But to be honest, that year was really difficult for me because I wasn't born to sit on the sidelines. And it was through a physical therapist that I knew that introduced me to the game. And this was before the age of social media, so that might show how old I am. But she connected me with this local wheelchair basketball team. And I remember going down for the first time, not having any perspective or any experience with adaptive sports or the game of wheelchair basketball. I didn't know how you shoot from a wheelchair. I kind of felt like they must play on those like 3-foot Fisher Price foot hoops for kids because I didn't have any perspective. But I remember going down and sitting in a basketball wheelchair for the first time. And this was the first time in my life that I had ever sat in a wheelchair. But I remember sitting in that chair and pushing up and down the court and going through practice. And for the first time in my life, I felt free from my disability. For the first time in my life, I felt like this was something that I was born to do, that I was able to be the best version of myself through this game. And I tell people that I haven't left the gym since in about 18 or 19 years. Basketball has truly given me everything that I have. And it's a passion of mine to give back to the sport that's given me everything.
Yeah. When you go into the wheelchair, and you said that was the first time you ever sat in a wheelchair when you start playing the basketball. And so you made the decision not just to go into the wheelchair for basketball, but you made the decision to basically go from the walking with the braces and the crutches to go to the wheelchair for your main mobility. Is that right?
Yes, sir. When I found the world of wheelchair basketball, my life became about doing what's best for me and not about fitting into a world that was not built for me. I didn't want to fit into the able-bodied world anymore. And all the other children were using wheelchairs despite their level of injury and despite their disability. They basically kind of laughed at me when I walked into the gym and I was using these braces and crutches and trying to, not hide my disability, but trying to pretend that I was able-bodied, pretend I didn't have a disability. And then when that world was opened up to me, I did make the change to sit in a wheelchair full time. I was actually also battling a pressure sore on my ankle because as my body was changing, my braces that I was using didn't constantly change with me with my growing body at that age as a teenager. So I was battling that pressure sore and I made the change to the chair. And honestly, it was a great quality of life decision for me. Yes, I don't have probably the dexterity and the strength in my lower extremities that I would have if I decided to continue to walk with braces and crutches. But my quality of life is just a lot better. It's easier for me to get around. I'm in less pain than I was, like less back pain and less hip pain than I was when I was doing those high impact activities like walking all over the place. And it was just the right decision for me personally. And I was always mad at myself because it took 15 years for me to have that world opened up to me that not only impacted my life as an athlete, but impacted my life personally as well.
I mean, was that an easy decision to make, though, to go from, walking with the crutches and the braces to just say, I'm going to give this up and I'm going to go to the wheelchair? I mean, was it a difficult decision to make?
For me, to be honest, it wasn't a difficult decision once I discovered how much easier life was for me sitting in a chair. I can tell you that the transition was a lot more difficult for my loved ones, especially my parents. They definitely felt like this was a decision that would not benefit me in the long term. You have to remember that they had gone my entire life by giving me all of the resources and opportunities that I could ask for to get through or quote unquote overcome my disability. And so by me kind of embracing it, that was a very big transition for them, especially my friends in high school. I'll never forget the very first day I rolled into high school in a wheelchair. One of my best friends basically told me that, he never saw how disabled I really was. And he didn't mean it in a malice way. It was a transition for everybody. But I can tell you that that's a decision that I made for myself. And it's not the decision that is right for everybody, but it improved my quality of life. And, it's really difficult for a 15-year-old to make that decision at that age. But I truly believe that I wouldn't be who I am today without my parents not only providing those resources and opportunities growing up, but provided me with the support to make that decision. And even though that maybe they weren't 100% comfortable with it at the time, they allowed me to be the person that I thought would cause me the most happiness.
Right.
Now it's everyone agrees that it was the right decision, but it was a transition, not only for me, but for the people around me as well.
Right. Well, that's interesting because when I was 15 is when I broke my neck playing high school football. And that's when it all changed for me. But, I got so fortunate that I was able to walk again after that. But the decision for me, though, was to keep pushing forward on walking because it worked for me. It wasn't, it looked like a struggle when I was walking, but it really wasn't. So it worked for me. But I think there's that mindset, though, of non-disabled people, or just say normal physical people, that all disabled people should strive to be physically normal. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that that's so well said, that the goal of the health industry really is, so the medical industry is to get us to be quote unquote more like our able-bodied counterparts. And that's not always the case. Some people can overcome their disability, but some people can't. And I can tell you that the thing that resonated me the most with your background was that there's no one size all approach to disability. While me and you might have similar disabilities, but at different levels, there's no one spinal cord injury that impacts everybody the exact same way. There's no one cerebral palsy that affects everybody the same way. Everybody has different lifestyles and everybody has different priorities. So I love to hear that when you were going through your transition, you were able to continue to walk and continue to live the best life that you were able to. And to be honest with you, I look at it the same way for me, even though I made the transition into the chair and away from walking, away from braces and crutches. We both made the best decision for us, but you're absolutely right. There's no such thing as a one size all approach to disability.
Right. Now, all right, so you start having success playing wheelchair basketball. What did that do to your confidence or your outlook on life?
To be honest, it changed everything. My world basically it transitioned away from what I couldn't do, focusing on the things that I didn't have, or focusing on the things that I wasn't able to compete in with my friends. And it immediately came and highlighted the things that I was able to do. And I learned that by embracing my insecurity, by embracing my disability, not shying away from it, not trying to hide it, but by really embracing it to the world, I was able to shatter any limitations anyone would ever try to place upon me. Off the court, I'm still looked at as someone with a disability. When someone who doesn't know me, it's intuitive that they immediately feel sorry for me because they look at the things that I don't have. But through basketball, I become this, part of my friends have become a badass wheelchair basketball athlete that just wants to be known as a hooper, just like anybody else.
Yeah.
And I talk to kids all the time, and I tell them that my wheelchair basketball chair is my version of an Iron Man suit. It's how I transform into the best version of myself, the most powerful and influential version of myself. So my entire outlook changed the day that I found this game of wheelchair basketball, and my identity became about pushing myself to be not only the athlete that I was always hoping to be, but a much more well-rounded and confident person and a much more well-rounded and confident leader.
Right. And so you play in high school and then you get a scholarship to the University of Illinois, right?
Yes, sir.
And so you go into college for free. Then at some point you try out for the national team for men's wheelchair basketball. How did that come about?
Yeah. So making the transition to go to the University of Illinois, being from New York, was a difficult decision, to say the least. It was the very first time I ever saw a cow was when when I stepped foot on campus, which that was a big life transition coming from the big city. But my experiences at U of I gave me the tools that I needed to progress to the next level. And while I was in college, I think it was my freshman or sophomore year, I made my first Team USA in 2006. And, college is a formative time for each person. It's the place where you experiment. It's the place where you grow, and it's the place where you build the foundation that's going to carry you and provide you with the skills necessary to tackle any challenge that you face moving forward. And for me, it was the place that I found out that, basketball and high performance basketball was something I wanted to pursue. Up until that point, basketball was not something that I 100% needed. I didn't love it. I didn't breathe it. It was just something I did because I was good at it. I just loved to play. It was never about wins and losses. But in college and when I progressed to Team USA, that's when I decided to give it my all and chase down the dreams of winning gold medals, of being the best in the world, and progressing in this game to heights that I never thought imaginable.
Steve, what's it like representing the USA on the national stage and winning gold?
Yeah, Rob, being a Team USA athlete is the highlight of my career. I've gotten a chance to compete in a number of Paralympic games, and the two moments specifically that are ones that I'll always remember. The first one is getting dressed with all of your Team USA athletes and walking out into opening ceremonies and hearing the uproar from the crowd when the United States of America is announced. And then the other one is getting a chance to be on that podium. I've had the wonderful opportunity to win 2 Paralympic gold medals and to be on the podium with my teammates, to see your flag raised just a little bit higher than everybody else's, and to hear your national anthem playing in the arena. Honestly, it's a feeling and an honor that is pretty indescribable. There's nothing like getting a chance to wear those 3 letters across your chest, to be able to go all around the world and to represent your country and represent those 3 letters in the highest regard and the highest ability. There's no greater feeling as an athlete. It's certainly the greatest honor of mine.
Right. So, Steve, based on everything you've been through and where you are now, what have you learned about yourself?
With all my experiences before basketball and after basketball, living with a disability, trying to become a leader in the community to inspire people to recognize their true potential within themselves. The thing I've learned the most about myself is just how resilient I am and just how resilient people are with disabilities. People don't really understand how much of a struggle it is day in and day out to constantly live in a world that was not built for you. But through sport and through the community that we have with each other, we're able to lift each other up. We're able to inspire each other through really difficult moments and through really difficult losses, but also to bring out the best in one another. And if you ask me what the most rewarding part about being an athlete is, it's that. It's the idea of showcasing the resiliency and bringing out the best in each of my teammates and myself alongside it. So, I think the thing I've learned the most is just how resilient we all are within our community.
Right. Steve, what's your philosophy on life? And I guess that's such a broad question, but what do you think we're all supposed to get out of life? What's it all about?
The thing that comes to mind, and the thing I always try to bring up in all the talks that I give, whether it's to a kids class or to like a Fortune 500 company, it's to learn from your mistakes, learn from your losses, and don't shy away from the difficult moments. As an athlete, I've learned from the times that I have been unsuccessful way more than the times that I've been successful in this game. I've learned from my losses and I've grown because of them. And so many people I see that don't reach their true potential are the ones that shy away, and they're the ones that are afraid to fail. When you live with a disability, I can tell you, you're constantly reminded of the things that you don't have, but we're just programmed to make it work. We're programmed to think outside the box and to do what's best for us in that specific moment. The most successful athletes are the same way. I always remind people that it took Jordan a number of years before he became Michael Jordan. And it took me 2 Paralympic games without winning gold before I was able to bring home the gold for Team USA in 2016. And I wouldn't be a 2-time gold medalist to this day without going through those difficult moments early on in my athletic career. So I always try to tell people to embrace the difficult moments, never shy away from the challenges, because even if you fail or even if you don't reach the heights that you are expecting yourself to reach, you'll still be incredibly surprised at how far and how long the journey will be, if you learn how to embrace them and learn and grow from those experiences.
And Steve, with all your success that you've had, I mean, do you still have, or do you have insecurities?
Oh, absolutely. I think every single person on this planet has some sort of insecurity. I have my good days and my bad days just like anybody else. But, with the skills that I've learned over the years, I don't shy away from those insecurities. I recognize that I could be having a bad day, or I could be one specific moment that caused me to be insecure about my body or my disability or what have you. I know that that's just a specific moment in time, and the skills that I've learned is that I'm going to use those negative feelings in a way to grow and be more resilient and be more well-rounded from it. I'm so happy you brought it up, because I never want it to seem like I live my life without insecurity, because it's not true. And just some people are better at hiding it than other people. But for me, the skills that I've learned has definitely helped deal with those insecurities that I still have to this day. I don't think that those insecurities are going away anytime soon, but I'm much more prepared to deal with them because of the experiences that I've had.
Right. And so, Steve, what advice would you give to others who have a physical disability? Of course, that's a tough question because everybody's got different ones, but you've lived your whole life since 11 months old with the disability. Some people like me have, normal physical lives until they're in an accident. Then they have to deal with it then. But as far as, somebody has physical disabilities and they're wondering, all right, what am I going to do now? What advice would you give them?
I give them two pieces of advice. One's on the personal side and one is on the professional side of things. On the personal side of things, I would remind them that every single person is different. Each person has to deal with that transition differently. Each person has to figure out their version of the best quality of life that is good for them. And I can tell you that I've met a lot of loved ones and people that have gone through transition later in life. It's different for every person. That timeline to get back to where you feel like your true self is different for each person. So continue the grind, continue the work, and don't ever give up, because you'll eventually get to the point where you'll live a pretty awesome life. And then on the professional side of things, I found wheelchair basketball. I always encourage people to test themselves, whether that's through sport or it could be through another hobby, but just find an activity where you don't have to adapt, where you could be exactly who you are unapologetically and be the best version of yourself. For me, like I've mentioned already, the thing that I gravitated towards wheelchair basketball about was that I didn't have to adapt it in any way. The rules didn't have to be changed. I could play this game exactly how it was constituted, and I was good at it. But I encourage everybody to, if they're interested in athletics, to find their local athletic team. There's a number of adaptive sports. But if sports aren't your thing, just go out and try to find an activity where you could thrive and that you can really show the world around you your true potential, because it's made a huge impact on me.
Right. And Steve, let me broaden the question out a little bit. What advice, based on what you've been through, I mean, just, more so than just having the physical disability, but everything else you go through in life, for somebody that's just, having some tough times, going through adversity, they're down on their luck, what advice would you give them to try to turn it around?
Yeah, if someone was like that and would ask me for advice, I would tell them to seek out the support of your loved ones around you, seek out the support of your local communities, and just continue to understand that this is a transition, this is a growth process and a growth opportunity for you. I know that growth is not comfortable. I know that we all have our good and bad times, and some of the bad times can maybe overshadow some of the good moments in our life. But I have gotten to this point in my life because those bad or those negative times or those down on your luck moments have come right before something that was truly life altering, that truly changed me for the better. So I would implore them to find support around them locally, whether that's through loved ones or the community, but know that if you continue to grind and you continue to put the work in, that good things will come, I promise. And it just takes a little bit of time.
Gotcha. Hey, Steve, if people want to follow you and keeping up with you and following you, how can they do it?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram. My Instagram handle is Steve Serio 11. I'm not on Twitter. That's a little bit too toxic for me, and I'm a little bit too old for TikTok. But Facebook and Instagram are the two places that anybody can reach out to me. I encourage anybody, if they just want to talk hoops or they just want to talk about disability or anything. I always check my social media feed, so I'm more than willing to just kind of talk and chat with your listeners. And if anybody wants, some local wheelchair basketball knowledge, I would encourage them to go to www.nwba.org. That's the nonprofit that sponsors wheelchair basketball in this country. And I work with a number of nonprofits as well. So, for instance, the Challenge Athletes Foundation that's based out of California. We do a number of fundraisers and works to remove some of the financial hurdles associated with adaptive sports. So I encourage you guys to reach out with any questions, and I'd be happy to connect.
Yeah, and Steve, I found you actually on Instagram. That's where I discovered you. And where I found you was you were in a video with Drew Brees, where he was in a wheelchair and you guys were playing wheelchair basketball. And as down here in Mobile, Alabama, we're close to New Orleans, so the Saints are kind of big time down here. So Drew Brees is a big deal. How did that come about?
Yeah, that was such an incredible day. So that came to fruition through the Challenge Athletes Foundation, that nonprofit that we talked about. And basically the day consisted of Drew Brees playing a number of different Paralympic sports and basically taking this world-class athlete and putting him into our adaptive sports world and seeing how he reacted and just kind of having him walk a mile in our shoes. He got a chance to play sit volleyball. He did a little powerlifting with an athlete, and then he got a chance to sit in a wheelchair and play wheelchair basketball. I can tell you that initially he was a little hesitant because everybody is, they don't have a lot of experience with wheelchair basketball. But I can tell you that only after shooting around with him for about 5 or 10 minutes, he was taking threes. He was dribbling at a really high level. And I can tell you that he would not leave the gym and he would not end the media appearance before he made a 3-pointer from a wheelchair. And it only took him about, 5 or 6 shots. I mean, he's an athlete, right? So he was very well versed in hoops, and it was just a really fun day to kind of explore and showcase the adaptive sports side in a high performance way, and to take this world-class athlete and kind of showcase our world to him. And he was so incredibly generous, so incredibly kind, and just an overall great guy. And it was a really fun day for all of us as athletes.
All right. You've played at such a high level. Is there any way that people can watch you or see some of your games on streaming services or anything like that?
Yeah, the internet is a wonderful thing. So I encourage you guys to maybe just Google wheelchair basketball or Team USA wheelchair basketball. You'll see some of the highlights and some of the games from the last 2 Paralympic games, which were in Rio in 2016 and more recently Tokyo in 2021. The investment that has been made in the Paralympic community is unparalleled in the last couple of years. And I just want to shout out Toyota has made an incredible investment into the adaptive sports world. They sponsor me personally and provide me with the opportunities to have access to the best equipment in the world. But they also are great storytellers, and they provide commercials and opportunities for us to inspire the adaptive sports community. For example, this was the very first time in history where a Paralympic athlete was featured during a Super Bowl commercial. I don't know if any of you guys are big football fans, but if you watched the Super Bowl this year, you saw Jessica Long, who's a Paralympic double amputee swimmer, and it was highlighted during the Super Bowl. I can't even imagine how many millions of people saw that ad, saw somebody with a disability, but not only overcoming it, but using it to her advantage to be this badass swimmer. So Toyota is an absolute game changer in the world of adaptive sports. I'm just so excited to be associated with them.
All right. Well, Steve, I can't tell you how much of a pleasure and an honor it's been having you come on Rocket Motivation. This has just been a thrill for me. But what I always do with the guests, I always give them the parting shot. So, if you got any more words of wisdom, advice based on what you've been through in your life, what you've observed, kind of give us something really good to take us home.
Yeah, I know that living with a disability is not easy, and everybody goes through those difficult moments in their life, but just know that there's people around you that are working really hard to provide us with opportunities that weren't provided to the generation before us. I can encourage you guys to reach out if you're going through a difficult time, or if you're looking for resources with adaptive sports, and just know that there is a community behind you that is willing to work with you to help you find the best version of yourself. It took me about 15 years to find a world that had changed my life. And I know that there's something out there for each and every one of you. So just reach out if you're looking to do so. And we're really happy to connect with y'all.
All right. Well, Steve, thanks so much for coming on.
Rob, thank you, man. Yeah, this was awesome. Appreciate you.
What a great episode with Steve Serio. His story of how his life got better by accepting and embracing his disability instead of conforming to society's expectations is remarkable and inspiring. Next week's guest is Jason Darley. Jason is a friend of mine and a criminal defense attorney. He'll talk about how living in poverty and overcoming tragic events has shaped his life. It's going to be a great episode. See you next week. So thanks again for listening to Rocket Motivation. I want to again thank our sponsor, Christy McCullough, and her firm, Empowered Family Law. Listeners in the Mobile County, Alabama area, get in touch with Chrissy and Empowered Family Law for all your family law issues and needs. If you would like to get my book, Get Back Up, it's available at Amazon. Just put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Cade, and the book will pop up. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to Rocket Motivation wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please rate and review the shows and spread the word about Rocket Motivation to your friends. So until next time, remember, never give up and always get back up.